The grand hall of the Galactic Council gleamed with an otherworldly light, its walls pulsing softly in hues of blue and silver. Leaders from countless species, each more alien than the next, filled the chamber. Their voices rose in overlapping waves, a cacophony of tension and urgency. At the center of it all, a massive holographic map projected the encroaching red tendrils of the Xarnath Empire, a ruthless force that had already consumed 3 galactic sectors. The room fell silent as High Chancellor Vorik, a towering figure with shimmering scales and piercing golden eyes, raised a clawed hand. His voice, deep and resonant, echoed through the chamber. "We stand at a crossroads," he declared. "The Xarnath Empire threatens us all. If we do not act now, our systems, our people, our very existence will be extinguished." A murmur rippled through the room. Some nodded gravely, others exchanged skeptical glances. Toward the back of the chamber, a lone human ambassador sat quietly. His crisp black uniform and sharp features stood out against the sea of alien delegates. Chancellor Vorik's gaze swept across the assembly. "We must pool our resources. Our fleets, combined, may stand a chance, but we need total unity." A council member with emerald-colored tendrils for hair scoffed. "Unity? With them?" She gestured toward the human ambassador. "Humans are barely a century into spacefaring. What could they possibly offer against the Xarnath?" Laughter erupted around the room. The human ambassador, Nathan Cole, remained silent, his expression calm and unreadable. Vorik raised his hand again to quiet the laughter. "Humanity is a member of this council. Ambassador Cole has the right to speak. Let us hear what Earth has to say, if anything." All eyes turned to Nathan as he rose from his seat. Despite the towering presence of many alien leaders, he exuded a quiet confidence. Slowly, deliberately, he stepped toward the center of the chamber. "Chancellor Vorik, esteemed council members," Nathan began, his voice steady but firm. "Humanity has been underestimated before. We've been mocked, doubted, even dismissed. But we've learned to thrive under pressure, to innovate when survival demanded it." The emerald-haired council member sneered. A stirring speech, but words won't stop the Xarnath fleet. Nathan smiled faintly. "No, they won't. But this might." Reaching into his pocket, he retrieved a small disc-shaped device. With a flick of his wrist, a hologram burst to life above the disc. Gasps filled the chamber as a sleek, massive vessel materialized in midair. "This," Nathan said, his voice cutting through the astonished silence, "is Eclipse, humanity's first interstellar dreadnought." The room froze. The warship's design was unlike anything the Council had ever seen. Its hull seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, its sharp angles giving it an almost predatory appearance. Lines of glowing blue energy coursed across its surface, hinting at power beyond comprehension. The laughter from earlier was replaced by stunned murmurs. "Impossible," someone whispered. "Humans don't have the technology for this." "Where did you get this?" another demanded. Nathan's gaze swept across the room. "We built it. No outside help. No ancient artifacts. Just human ingenuity and determination." The emerald-haired leader leaned forward, her tendrils writhing with disbelief. "A hologram proves nothing. Do you expect us to believe you've built a ship that can rival the Xarnath fleet?" Nathan's smile widened slightly. "I don't expect you to believe. I expect you to see." With a press of a button, the hologram shifted to a live feed from deep space. The Eclipse floated against the backdrop of a distant star system, its immense size dwarfing the planets around it. "This," Nathan said, his voice now edged with steel, "is not just a ship. It's a message. Humanity will not stand by while the Xarnath destroy everything in their path. If the Council is willing, Eclipse will lead the charge." The silence that followed was deafening. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council was speechless. Chancellor Vorik finally spoke, his golden eyes fixed on Nathan. "You claim much, Ambassador, but claims must be tested." Nathan nodded. "Of course, Chancellor. Arrange the test. But I'll warn you now, this ship will not disappoint. As he stepped back to his seat, the hologram of the Eclipse lingered in the air, casting long shadows over the council chamber. The leaders exchanged uneasy glances, their earlier dismissal of humanity now replaced by a growing sense of unease. Nathan sat down, his calm demeanor unchanged. But inside, he knew the battle had already begun. Not with the Xarnath, but here, in this room. Humanity's place in the galaxy depended on what came next, testing the beast. The vastness of space stretched endlessly as the Galactic Council's fleet assembled near the designated testing grounds. Ships of all shapes and sizes, each representing a different species, floated in a loose formation. Their sleek, polished hulls shimmered in the light of a distant star, a stark contrast to the ominous, dark presence of the Eclipse that now dominated the scene. Inside the Council's command ship, a nervous energy permeated the air. Delegates and fleet commanders watched the live feed on massive monitors, their gazes fixed on humanity's warship. "It doesn't even look alive," muttered Commander Ulroth, a feline-like alien with glowing amber eyes. "It's unnatural." Chancellor Vorik stood at the center of the command deck, his gaze unwavering. "Unnatural or not, we will see if it can deliver on its promises." On board the Eclipse, Ambassador Nathan Cole stood in the warship's command center. Surrounding him were men and women in crisp uniforms, their faces a mix of determination and quiet confidence. At the helm was Captain Elena Drake, a seasoned officer whose piercing gaze seemed to command both respect and fear. "We're ready, Ambassador," Drake said, her voice calm but resolute. "All systems are operational. The Council's fleet will commence the test in 2 minutes." Nathan nodded, his hands clasped behind his back. "Let them come. It's time we show them what humanity can do." The test was simple but daunting. The Eclipse would face a simulated attack from the Council's fleet. While no live weapons would be used, the fleet would deploy their most advanced tactics and technology to probe the Eclipse's defenses. "Commander," Elena called to her tactical officer, a wiry man named Patel. "Status on their formations." Patel's fingers danced across his console. "They're splitting into 3 groups, flankers on the left and right, main force straight ahead. Standard envelopment maneuver." Elena smirked. Predictable. The countdown reached 0, and the test began. The Council's fleet moved with practiced precision, their ships advancing in coordinated waves. On the monitors, swarms of simulated projectiles lit up the screens, streaking toward the Eclipse. "Activate the shield array," Elena ordered. The Eclipse hummed as its hull shimmered with a faint blue light. The incoming attacks vanished on contact, absorbed without a trace. Gasps echoed across the Council's command ship. "Impossible." Commander Ulroth hissed. "No ship has shields that strong." But the Eclipse wasn't just on defense. As the enemy formations tightened, Elena issued her next command. "Engage stealth protocols and deploy decoys." The Eclipse seemed to vanish into the void, its angular frame dissolving into the blackness of space. At the same time, a dozen identical holographic images of the warship appeared, scattering in different directions. Confusion rippled through the Council's fleet. Which one is the real target? A flustered commander barked over the intercom. "Target all of them." The Council's ships adjusted their aim, their weapons firing in all directions. But each shot passed harmlessly through the decoys, their sensors unable to pinpoint the true Eclipse. On board the Council's command ship, Chancellor Vorik's expression darkened. "They're playing with us," he muttered. The Eclipse reappeared behind the main force, its engines flaring as it unleashed a barrage of simulated counterattacks. On the monitors, the Council's ships were systematically disabled, their shields and propulsion systems overwhelmed by precise strikes. In less than 10 minutes, the test was over. The Council's fleet lay in simulated ruin, their ships adrift and powerless. The silence on the Council's command deck was deafening. No one dared to speak, their disbelief etched across their faces. On board the Eclipse, Nathan turned to Alina. "Good work, Captain. You've made your point." Alina's lips curled into a faint smile. They didn't stand a chance. Back on the Council's ship, Chancellor Vorik finally broke the silence. "Inform the fleet to stand down. This test is over." As the monitor switched back to the image of the Eclipse, its dark, imposing frame seemed almost alive, as if it were watching them in return. "What kind of species builds a ship like that?" Oroth whispered, her voice trembling. Chancellor Vorik's gaze remained fixed on the human warship, the kind that refuses to lose. The Council divided. The atmosphere in the Galactic Council chamber was thick with unease. The test of humanity's eclipse had shattered every expectation. Council members, once dismissive of humanity's capabilities, now sat in stunned silence, their minds racing to comprehend what they had just witnessed. Chancellor Vorik stood at the head of the council table, his golden eyes narrowing as he surveyed the room. Around him, representatives from the various species murmured to one another, exchanging looks of shock and disbelief. "What have we become?" whispered Talia, the representative of the peaceful Narvian people, her small blue hands trembling. "We are supposed to be the protectors of the galaxy, yet we were outclassed by a species less than a century old." "This is more than just technology," said General Vorna, the leader of the Gorath coalition, his 4 arms folded in a tight embrace. His deep voice resonated through the chamber. "This is a statement. Humanity has shown us that they can outthink us, outmaneuver us, and potentially outfight us. We've seen nothing like it," said High Scientist Remick, an alien with no visible face, his voice coming from the swirling nebula of his cloud-like body. "Those shields, that cloaking ability, we didn't even scratch them." Across the room, a few leaders exchanged uncomfortable glances. The test wasn't just about humanity's warship, it was about the implications it had on their collective power. If one human warship could dominate the Council's combined forces, what could humanity achieve if they decided to wield their full potential? Vorik raised his hand, calling the assembly to order. "We are at a critical juncture. The Xarnath Empire advances with terrifying speed. We have no choice but to form an alliance. But now," his voice grew heavier, "now we must reconsider what role humanity will play in this." The chamber fell into a tense silence, broken only by the soft hum of the room's artificial atmosphere. "I agree," said Commander Luroth, his feline eyes sharp and focused. "Humanity has proven itself capable, but the question remains, how do we incorporate them into the fight without risking them overshadowing the rest of us?" The room erupted into heated discussion. Some leaders argued for full integration, welcoming humanity's warships into the fight against the Xarnath. Others feared the rise of a new power, one they could no longer control. "What if humanity's fleet grows?" General Vorna added, his tone more serious now. "What if their ingenuity leads them to build more eclipses, or worse, something even greater? We'd be looking at a new galactic empire." A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. Chancellor Vorik's brow furrowed. "I understand your concerns, but this is not the time for fear. If we allow that fear to guide our decisions, we will fall into chaos, just as we did before when the Xarnath first appeared. We must trust in humanity's determination." "Trust them." The Narvian representative's voice shook. "What if their ambition outgrows the limits of our alliance?" "I've spent years as part of this council," Vorik responded, his voice firm. "I've seen countless species come and go. But I've never seen a species like humanity. They have the ability to innovate in ways we cannot even imagine. If we reject them, we risk losing our only hope of standing against the Xarnath." The debate raged on, the voices of the council members blending into an indecipherable hum. It was clear that Vorik was right. Humanity had something that no one had anticipated. But it was also clear that fear was rising among the council, fear of what this new force could mean. Meanwhile, in a quiet corner of the council's ship, Nathan Cole stood alone, staring out into the abyss of space. He had watched the proceedings from the sidelines, his expression unreadable. Despite the momentous victory, he knew that the battle was far from over. The council was divided. Some wanted to embrace humanity's strength, while others feared what it could mean for their own power. It was the first time in his life that Nathan truly understood how fragile alliances could be, and how easily they could fracture. "I'm not here to take over," Nathan muttered to himself. "I'm here to ensure humanity has a place in this galaxy. But can they see that?" His communicator buzzed. Elena Drake's voice came through, calm but firm. "Ambassador, the council is still debating. I suggest you prepare for what comes next." Nathan exhaled slowly. "I know, Captain. But whatever happens, we need to stay true to our course. Humanity's future in this galaxy is at stake." As Nathan turned to leave, his mind raced. The eclipse had proven its worth, but now came the true test. Could humanity secure its place in the galaxy without becoming a threat to the very ones they were trying to protect? Only time would tell. The Xarnath threat. The Galactic Council was in disarray. The debate over humanity's warship still raged in the chamber, but an urgent message soon cut through the political noise. The Xarnath Empire had made its move. The alert came in as a chilling, silent video feed, showing the Xarnath fleet's approach to a peaceful star system on the edge of the galaxy. Their ships, massive and dark, loomed ominously against the backdrop of a distant sun. Every vessel in their fleet seemed to pulse with an unnatural, menacing energy, their weapons brimming with destructive power. The Xarnath were unlike any species the Council had ever faced. They were ancient, ruthless, and relentless. Their technology was built around subjugation, their ships designed to crush all who stood in their way. They didn't negotiate. They didn't ask for surrender. They simply conquered. As the video ended, Vorek's voice filled the council chamber. "This is what we face. The Xarnath are closing in on the Narvian border. If we don't act, it will be too late." Chancellor Vorek paced, his brow furrowed in thought. "We have fought the Xarnath before, but this time they are different. They have learned, adapted. We cannot afford another failure. Our forces are too scattered to stand against them alone. And this is where humanity comes in, isn't it?" General Vorna spoke up, his voice heavy with suspicion. "You want us to trust them. But have you considered the consequences of unleashing their warship on the Xarnath? What if we cannot control them once they've tasted victory?" Vorek's eyes narrowed. "The risk of inaction is greater than the risk of trusting humanity. They have shown us their power, and now we must decide. Will we unite and stand as one, or will we crumble individually in the face of the Xarnath?" There was no reply. The room fell silent again. Back aboard the Eclipse, Nathan Cole received the news just as the council chamber broadcasted the Xarnath's advance to the fleet. His fingers tightened on the edge of the table, his mind racing. He knew what had to be done. Humanity could not, would not, sit idly by while the galaxy fell into chaos. "Captain Drake," he called, turning to face his trusted officer, who stood at attention nearby. "Prepare the ship. We're joining the fight." Elena's expression was calm, but her eyes held a glint of something darker, something more dangerous. "Understood, Ambassador. I'll rally the crew." "Time is against us," Nathan murmured, glancing at the screen again. The Xarnath fleet was drawing closer. "This may be our only chance to prove humanity's worth." The Eclipse surged to life, its massive engines roaring with power as it exited the shadow of a nearby moon. The warship's dark silhouette cut through space with ease, a perfect reflection of humanity's resolve. As the Eclipse left its berth, Nathan's communicator buzzed again. This time, it was Elena. "Sir, we've just received word from the Council," she said, her voice edged with concern. "They've decided to let us engage, but they're still uncertain about how far they'll go with our involvement." "They don't have a choice," Nathan replied sharply. "The Xarnath won't wait for us to make decisions. We act now, or we lose everything." Elena nodded. "We'll fight then." The Eclipse moved closer to the front lines, its sensors alive with activity. The Xarnath fleet's presence sent shockwaves through space, their ships looming like predators stalking prey. Despite their advanced technology, there was something terrifying about the Xarnath that made every creature in the galaxy uneasy. Their culture was built on fear, and their fleet was a symbol of that unyielding terror. Nathan's eyes flicked over the map of the star system. They're moving in on the Nargian border. We need to get there first and block their advance. The Eclipse glided into position, its systems online and ready. They wouldn't just stop the Xarnath. They would send a message. Humanity wasn't just part of the galactic community. They were a force to be reckoned with. From the ship's control room, Alina sent out the orders. All hands, prepare for combat. This is not a drill. We'll face the Xarnath head-on. Keep the shields up and stay in formation. As the Eclipse engaged its engines, the ship's weapon systems powered up with a low hum. Nathan's hands gripped the sides of his chair. This was the moment of truth. Would humanity's ship stand firm against the might of the Xarnath? The Council's representatives watched from their command ships, still unsure whether humanity's power would be enough to turn the tide. But the Eclipse was ready, and so was its crew. As the two fleets advanced toward each other, the stage was set. The galaxy held its breath, knowing that the outcome of this battle could reshape everything. Nathan looked ahead, his voice calm but filled with unshakable resolve. Prepare to show them why they should fear humanity. The battle for the galaxy was about to begin. The battle begins. The Eclipse cut through the void of space like a predator, its sleek hull gleaming under the light of distant stars. Ahead, the Xarnath fleet loomed, massive, terrifying, and merciless. Their ships moved in perfect formation, like a swarm of dark insects poised to strike. They were a constant reminder of the galaxy's long history of suffering and conquest. The moment the Eclipse dropped out of its cloaking field, the Xarnath ships took notice. Alarm signals began flashing on their command decks as their sensors detected the human warship's sudden appearance. But it was too late. The Eclipse had already fired. The first blast from the warship's cannons sent a shockwave rippling through the void, striking the closest Xarnath ship with such force that it shattered like a fragile piece of glass. The enemy ship's hull cracked open, sending debris scattering in all directions. It was a devastatingly accurate strike, one that showed the true might of humanity's weaponry. Direct hit, Captain. Alina Drake's voice rang through the comms, her face illuminated by the glowing console in front of her. We've crippled their lead vessel. Nathan Cole's expression was steady, but his mind was racing. This was only the beginning. The Xarnath weren't going to back down. They never did. But humanity had the advantage for now, and they had to make every shot count. We can't let up, Nathan said, his voice calm but filled with determination. Prepare for another strike. Focus on the next ship. The Eclipse glided effortlessly through space, its advanced systems predicting enemy movements with near-perfect precision. The Xarnath ships retaliated almost immediately, unleashing a barrage of powerful energy blasts that cracked against the Eclipse's shields. The impact shook the ship, but the human-made defenses held strong. Shields holding at 85%, sir, reported Lieutenant Hallstrom, one of Nathan's trusted officers. We're taking fire, but we're still in the game. That won't last long if we don't take out more of them, Nathan replied, his eyes scanning the battlefield. Alina, concentrate fire on their rear fleet. We need to break their formation. Alina didn't hesitate. Aye, sir. The Eclipse adjusted its trajectory, flying directly into the heart of the Xarnath fleet. Its cannons roared again, sending wave after wave of powerful energy blasts into the enemy ships. One by one, the Xarnath vessels exploded into fireballs, their once imposing forms reduced to smoldering wreckage. The human warship's firepower was unlike anything the Xarnath had ever encountered. In the council chambers, the representatives watched the live feed, their expressions a mixture of awe and disbelief. For the first time, they could see the power of humanity's warship in action. It was a far cry from the weaponless, peaceful species they had once dismissed. The Eclipse was tearing through the Xarnath fleet with ruthless efficiency. "This is impossible," muttered General Vorna, his voice trembling with shock. "How is this possible? No fleet should have this kind of firepower." Chancellor Vorek's gaze remained fixed on the screen. His thoughts were clouded by uncertainty. This display of power was both impressive and terrifying. The Xarnath had always been a force to be reckoned with. Now they were facing something that could match, or perhaps even surpass, their own strength. "It's humanity's ingenuity," Vorek said, his voice barely above a whisper. "They're not bound by tradition or old ways. They innovate every day. This is what they are capable of when they decide to fight." As the battle raged on, Nathan felt the weight of the situation settle on his shoulders. The Eclipse was doing its job, but the Xarnath were relentless. More ships poured into the fray, their numbers seemingly endless. Each ship they destroyed was quickly replaced by another, larger and more menacing. "Sir," Lieutenant Hallstrom called out, "their reinforcements are coming in fast. We can't keep this up forever." Nathan's mind raced. They couldn't let the Xarnath regroup. If they did, the battle would be lost. There had to be something they could do to tip the scales. "Captain, I have an idea," Alina said, her voice cutting through his thoughts. Nathan turned to her, his brow furrowing. "What do you have in mind?" "If we make a direct assault on their command ship," Alina explained, "we can cripple their leadership. Without it, the rest of their fleet will fall into disarray. They won't be able to coordinate properly." Nathan considered this for a moment. It was risky. The command ship was heavily guarded, and taking it down would require a precise, almost impossible strike. But it was their best shot. "Do it," Nathan said, his voice firm. "Target their command ship. Let's finish this." The Eclipse adjusted its course, heading straight for the heart of the Xarnath fleet. The enemy ships fired relentlessly, but the Eclipse's advanced technology allowed it to weave through their attacks with startling precision. With every maneuver, they got closer to the command ship, and Nathan knew this would be their make-or-break moment. "Alina, give them everything we've got." The Eclipse's cannons blazed to life once more, launching a barrage of energy blasts that cut through the Xarnath fleet like a knife through butter. With each shot, another Xarnath ship exploded in a burst of fiery destruction. Finally, they reached the command ship. Its dark silhouette loomed ahead, its weapons charged and ready. But the Eclipse was faster. It fired one last, powerful shot, piercing the heart of the command ship. The Xarnath vessel cracked apart, its energy core destabilizing in an instant. A massive explosion rippled through the fleet, sending shockwaves through space. The Xarnath fleet faltered. Their ships lost coordination, their attacks became erratic, and the once imposing war machines began to scatter. The battle was over. The Xarnath were defeated. As the Eclipse floated in the silence of space, Nathan leaned back in his chair, letting out a long breath. They had won, but at what cost? "Alina," he said quietly, "we did it." But Alina's face was grim. "Yes, we did. But this fight is far from over." Nathan nodded. The Eclipse had secured humanity's place in the galaxy, but the future was still uncertain. There would be more challenges ahead, and the real battle for humanity's place in the galaxy was just beginning. The aftermath of victory. The vast emptiness of space was eerily silent after the battle. The once imposing Xarnath fleet, now scattered in ruins, left behind only wreckage and debris. It was a strange kind of victory for humanity, one that came at a heavy cost. The Eclipse floated in the midst of the destruction, its hull battered but intact. On board, the crew had mixed emotions. While they had achieved the impossible, the aftermath of the battle weighed heavily on their hearts. The Eclipse had delivered a blow that the galaxy would never forget, but the war was far from over. There were more enemies to face, more trials ahead. Yet humanity had proven that they could stand their ground, that they had the strength to challenge the galaxy's fiercest warriors. As Captain Nathan Cole walked through the corridors of the Eclipse, he could feel the tension in the air. The crew had just completed a battle they thought they'd never survive, but there was no time for celebration. There was too much work to do, too many questions to answer. He entered the command center, where Elena Drake was already reviewing the data. Her face was serious, her brow furrowed in thought, as she scanned the holographic displays. "What's the status, Elena?" Nathan asked, his voice calm but filled with the weight of responsibility. She looked up at him, her eyes tired but focused. "The Xarnath fleet is broken, Captain, but we're receiving reports of significant losses on our side as well. Several of our vessels were damaged in the battle, and many of our soldiers are wounded." She paused, tapping a few buttons on her console. "But it could have been worse." Nathan nodded. It was the same everywhere. War had a cost, no matter how great the victory. But the bigger question still lingered. "Do we know if the Xarnath will regroup?" Nathan asked, stepping closer to the command table. "We're not sure yet," Elena replied, glancing at the tactical map. "But one thing is clear. They won't be able to mount another attack so quickly. Their command ship was the heart of their fleet. With it gone, their forces are disorganized. It will take them time to regroup." Nathan turned his gaze toward the viewport, where the remnants of the Xarnath fleet were slowly drifting in the distance. His mind raced with the implications of their victory. The Xarnath were powerful, yes, but they were also prideful. They wouldn't take this defeat lying down. "This won't be the end," he muttered, more to himself than to Elena. Elena met his eyes, her expression resolute. "No, it won't. The galaxy has always underestimated humanity. They saw us as weak, primitive, but they've just seen what we're capable of." She looked down at the tactical map. "We've proven that we can fight back, that we have the power to shape our own destiny." Nathan took a deep breath. He knew she was right. The Xarnath weren't the only ones watching this battle unfold. Every galactic power, from the ruthless Koloth to the peaceful Trillions, had seen what humanity could do. The Eclipse's appearance was no accident. It was a symbol of something more. "We need to make sure the galaxy knows this wasn't a fluke," Nathan said, his voice steady. "Humanity needs to establish its place here, not just as survivors, but as a force to be reckoned with." Elena nodded. "Agreed. But we need to be careful. The galaxy is watching, and not everyone will be happy about our rise." Nathan's eyes narrowed. "We've already survived the worst. If we can make it through this, we'll make it through anything." The comms console chimed, and Lieutenant Hallstrom's voice filled the room. "Captain, we've received a transmission from the Galactic Council. They're requesting a meeting." Nathan exchanged a glance with Elena. The Council, the same body that had dismissed humanity as inconsequential, was finally taking notice. "Put it through," Nathan ordered. The screen flickered to life, and the faces of the council members appeared, their expressions stern and unreadable. At the center of the screen was Chancellor Vorik, his eyes sharp, his posture regal. "Captain Cole," he began, his voice cold and calculating. "You've made quite an impression. Your ship, the Eclipse, has done something no one thought possible. You've destroyed a significant portion of the Xarnath fleet. But do not mistake this victory for an invitation to meddle further in galactic affairs." Nathan met his gaze, his jaw set with determination. "I don't need an invitation to protect my people, Chancellor. Humanity has a place in this galaxy, and we intend to keep it." Vorik's eyes flickered with something, perhaps respect, perhaps disdain. "We'll see, Captain. You may have won this battle, but the war is far from over. The Xarnath are only one of many threats in this galaxy, and now you've drawn attention to yourselves. Be prepared for what's coming next." The transmission cut off, and the screen returned to the familiar tactical display. Elena turned to Nathan, her eyes filled with understanding. "They're scared." Nathan's expression was hard, his resolve unshakable. "Let them be. We're not backing down." The victory over the Xarnath was just the beginning. The galaxy had taken its first real look at humanity's power. And now, there was no turning back. There were many challenges ahead, but Nathan knew that humanity was ready. The Eclipse wasn't just a warship. It was a symbol of the strength, resilience, and ingenuity that humanity had to offer. And now, the galaxy would have to face the consequences of underestimating them. As the Eclipse sailed toward the unknown, Nathan Cole stood firm, knowing that the true battle for humanity's place in the galaxy had only just begun. A new dawn for humanity. The stars seemed brighter now, reflecting the newfound strength of humanity. The Eclipse glided through space, its sleek form cutting through the darkness, as if carving out its own destiny. For Captain Nathan Cole and his crew, this was a moment they would never forget, a turning point in the history of their species. But as they sailed toward the unknown, the weight of the future pressed upon their shoulders. In the command center, Elena Drake and the rest of the senior officers gathered around the holographic display, reviewing the latest data. The battle against the Xarnath had left a lasting impression across the galaxy. But as Captain Cole entered the room, his eyes told a different story. They weren't done yet. The Council's warning hung over their heads like a storm cloud. The victory they had achieved had sparked something larger than they had anticipated. Nathan approached the map, his eyes narrowing as he analyzed the system coordinates. "We've made a statement, but it's only the beginning," he said, his voice steady, filled with conviction. He turned toward Elena. "What's the status of the fleet?" "We've received reinforcements from the Terran forces," Elena replied, tapping a few buttons on her console. "We've also been in contact with the Varkash and the Karidi. They're offering support for future operations." Her tone was cautious but optimistic. "It seems our actions have caught the attention of more than just the Council." Nathan nodded, but his mind was already racing. Humanity had proved its worth. The Eclipse had become a symbol, but what mattered now was what they would do with that symbol. Would they rest on their laurels, basking in the glow of their first great victory? Or would they rise even higher, proving once and for all that humanity had a rightful place in this vast, dangerous galaxy? Suddenly, the comms console beeped, signaling an incoming transmission. Lieutenant Hallstrom's voice rang out. "Captain, we have an encrypted message. It's from the Varkash Alliance." "Put it through," Nathan ordered, stepping toward the screen. The transmission flickered, and a tall reptilian figure appeared on the screen. This was Vokkar, the Varkash envoy, a species known for their strategic prowess and their sharp political minds. His deep green scales shimmered under the dim light, and his eyes gleamed with an unsettling intelligence. "Captain Cole," Vokkar began, his voice smooth yet laden with intrigue. "The Varkash have been observing your recent actions. Your victory over the Xarnath was impressive, unexpected, even. We believe there is potential for collaboration between our two species." Nathan's gaze didn't waver as he met Vokkar's eyes. "Collaboration? What do you mean?" "We have resources," Vokkar continued, his tone calculated. "And your warship, the Eclipse, is unlike anything we've seen. The Varkash are ready to assist you in strengthening your military and technological capabilities, in exchange for future cooperation, of course." Nathan felt a stir of uncertainty. The offer was tempting, too tempting. The Varkash had their own agenda, and Nathan knew they couldn't afford to trust anyone blindly, especially after what had just transpired. But the galaxy was a dangerous place, and if humanity wanted to survive, it would need allies. The question was whether this alliance would truly benefit them, or if it would come at a cost. "We'll consider your offer," Nathan said after a moment of careful thought. "But no alliances will be made unless we're certain they're in humanity's best interest." Vokkar's expression remained neutral, but there was a flicker of something, perhaps respect, or maybe even a hint of disappointment. "Very well, Captain. We will await your decision." The transmission ended, and the screen flickered back to the tactical map. The room fell silent as everyone processed the implications of Vokkar's words. "This could change everything," Elena said softly. The Varkesh are powerful, and their technology is advanced. If we accept their offer, we could accelerate our capabilities beyond anything we've imagined. Nathan rubbed his chin thoughtfully. I know, Belina, but we have to be cautious. The Varkesh are opportunistic. They won't offer help without expecting something in return. And the galaxy is watching, Elena added. Every move we make will shape our future. We can't afford to make a mistake. Nathan's eyes narrowed as he gazed out at the stars through the viewport. The path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humanity was no longer the underdog. The galaxy had seen their strength, and now, the question was whether they could hold on to that power. He turned back to his crew, his expression hardening with resolve. We've earned our place here. But this is just the beginning. We'll forge our own path. No one will dictate our future, and as long as we stand together, no one will stop us. The Eclipse moved forward, cutting through the dark expanse of space, ready to face whatever came next. The galaxy had taken its first real look at humanity's potential, and now it would have to reckon with the consequences. Captain Nathan Cole knew that their victory had only just set the stage for a far greater challenge. The galaxy was vast, and many threats loomed on the horizon. But humanity had proven they could fight, and they would fight again, this time with the knowledge that they were no longer alone. The new dawn of humanity had arrived, and it was up to them to make sure it would shine brighter than any star in the galaxy.